Greetings. This is working. Looks like it. Okay. I wanted to talk about the last video. It's under the video tab, and I tried messing with my phone to make it the same, but then it cut out after 20 something minutes. But then I found out my storage isn't enough because 1080, 60, whatever is an insane amount of storage, I guess, and it didn't have enough for doing that even temporarily. But about the last video and to talk about what I believe in prophecy, natural prophecy or carnal prophecy. Let me get away from this thing here. Hold up a second. Oh, come on. Okay, well, not that that I have much to show here right now anyways, but basically I received some things, looked at them, seemingly crazy connections, and not to go into detail on all of those things, but my belief was that we're not to mess around with or do that kind of prophecy, natural prophecy, as people know it the way we know it, the way everyone naturally knows and believes that what it is, which isn't the true prophecy, of which we have much of that according to the scripture and the literal letter of prophecies. That is something that happens on a specific day, a specific thing that needs to happen on that day. And that's what prophecy is, naturally, carnally. And that's what I want to talk about, because I didn't have the belief that, or want to do that, or do something like that. I didn't think the Father even does any of that through anyone. So I was kind of in a middle, not good place, in the middle, not taking a strong side, even though I didn't actually know concerning that last video that anything would happen. And I think I did mention in that lunar eclipse video that I didn't know. But nevertheless, I went along as if, something could happen and put importance or weight on it. So I'm at fault, and forgive me for that, for making that something, for making that into something. And the very simple verse that we don't even know what happens tomorrow. We don't even know what tomorrow will bring. We're just like a vapor, grass that comes up and then it's gone. That came through my mind. Other things came through my mind during that time. But nevertheless, I went along as if I did believe it. And it's kind of hard to explain exactly, what all the everything going on in your mind, and the belief in that was being questioned by my own self, whether that was true, that that we shouldn't do something like that. That is literal prophecy, carnal prophecy. That is to say something's going to happen on this day, a certain event about the world, something you can see, feel, touch, hear. But I went along with that anyways, kind of not knowing, questioning my own belief in that because of the connections and things that I looked at, received, and some of them seemingly pretty wild. But forgive me for that. I believe I was wrong in making that something into a something. And I also see that maybe even more clearly now than before that there's no profit. There's no spiritual profit in that kind of prophecy, especially, when it doesn't come to be. And when does it ever? And these things were in my mind, that when do we ever see that even happen? It doesn't. Nobody does that, do they? So I don't think the Father is doing that specific thing. Nevertheless, I think that some of these things could mean something, just not that, just not meaning or pointing to something's going to happen on a certain day. And then it happens just like that. Connections about how this world works, how the Father's working, how he's in control of everything, meaning something towards that end. Seeing almost like the construction of the math, the design in a little way, in a little bits and pieces of it, things that connect that shouldn't connect, that are too wild to be coincidences, for that purpose, maybe to see some of that, to see how he's working, how he's in control of everything, but also for this reason, to see that, that we shouldn't do that, that just might be the truth, and I believe it is. That kind of prophecies, in a way, done away with, if you will. Well, not if you will. I don't even like that, so I won't use that. But I already did, so I guess it's too late. But the to talk about a little bit about that prophecy, it's that not that it's evil in and of itself. Otherwise, everything that came to be with Messiah would be evil then, and of course that isn't true. And everything that all the prophecies of Messiah to be born, to come to this world through that way, not falling from heaven, turning into a seed, and then being born, and I don't know, I guess dying for a little while until he was born, coming from heaven. Messiah does come from heaven, just not the way that the church world says, which is carnal. These are the things that need to die in us, carnal things. These are the very things, including, I believe, carnal prophecy, as, something that sounds good, looks good, it'd be tempting, no doubt. But how is it that something like that can benefit concerning the kingdom of heaven, concerning the heart, spiritual things? So let's say there was an event and it did happen. What of it? You think, what can that do for someone's heart? They wouldn't believe anyways, knowing that seeing is not believing. Not seeing is believing. Not seeing and believing is believing. To see and then believe doesn't exist. And, speaking for someone that doesn't believe, the world that doesn't believe, if they're waiting to see something magnificent like that, carnal like that, a sign like that, A wicked generation seeks a sign. That's the kind of sign Messiah is speaking of. Who believes it? Hard words. That's the very kind of sign he says a wicked generation seeks a sign. But specifically, it's to see that first, and then I'll believe. Specifically for unbelievers, to see and want to see that kind of sign, and then I'll believe. That is the thing that will never give belief. The Father won't be wrong in anything. And if it's not for us to do carnal prophecy, then he won't be wrong. We will. Then we'll be wrong. And then we'll need corrected. As I need corrected. To think that any believer in the world doesn't do anything wrong is laughable with a little bit of understanding. That's the only way to learn. And Messiah learned through suffering. He became perfected. And through his ministry, he didn't sin. From that baptism forward, he didn't sin. He was perfected. He's the perfect example. Everything he taught, everything he did from the heart was right, was good. And that's why they killed him. For that reason, for that very specific reason, that he did no sin or evil to them or to anyone. But that kind of prophecy, though, I don't see spiritual benefit or value in concerning the new covenant, concerning the kingdom of heaven, of which we read to compare spiritual things with spiritual. That means all his word is spiritual and spirit. Messiah said, my word is spirit. All of it, my word, is spirit. Genesis through Malachi is spiritual. Those are the things we need to receive and understand. That comes from above, comes from heaven above, from the Father. And he spoke of the scriptures when we read that. Paul or whoever may have said it. Paul, I think, compare spiritual with spiritual. Speaking of the scriptures, speaking of Genesis, speaking of all the scriptures, Exodus, all of them, the Hebrew scriptures, all of it is spirit. It means something spiritual. That's the intention. It came from the Father with that intention, with reason and meaning. And those are the things we need to learn and find out. It doesn't mean something carnal. That's not what the Father's thinking. That's not who he is. It means something carnal to the carnal man, to the natural man, to us with no understanding from above. It means something carnal. And that's why we read the letter kills. It murders. To do the letter is to kill. To believe that something in his word means a carnal thing, it kills. Because whatever's wrong will kill. Because if it's wrong, it's a sin. It's not right. It's not the truth. Everything we read about Adam and Eve is spiritual from that beginning. It's not meaning what it appears or looks like. That's how all of his word works. The covering, the nakedness, the running, the hiding to the sticks. These things all mean something that is being done within man every day, spiritually being done, spiritual wickedness being done in high places, the places of the heart. And the high places of this world are only evil. Now, Messiah did prophesy about Jerusalem's destruction He did that, and we can know it's not sin because he didn't sin. Everything he taught during his ministry, he was perfected. He didn't do any evil by doing that. He spoke the truth. It was some ways a way out, but not that far out. Some years down the road, but it wouldn't be that much longer until one stone not standing on another. He said, not one stone will stand on another. Yeah, they must have. They did mock and laugh at that, scoffed at that. Jerusalem, this great nation, and however long to build this temple, and it's just going to collapse and everything will be destroyed. Yeah, right. They didn't believe it. So he did that. He warned them. But I don't believe he had anything to do with saying that such and such thing will happen just like this on this day. Just that this judgment was around the corner, it was near, fairly near, some years away, but when you look at it from a bird's eye view, not very far away. And for how long Jerusalem has existed up until that point, not very far away. And he said that that would come, and it did come. And even digging into history proves that Jerusalem was destroyed by 70 AD or so, but possibly already began earlier than that. Late 60s somewhere, 67, I don't know for sure, but by the Romans. Like an entire kingdom wiped away. If the Father was for that all along, it wouldn't have been destroyed. But it shows how much patience he had that it existed for that long, Jerusalem. And it was all a delusion. In reality, with the people, from Moses to then, from Adam to then, it wasn't even for their benefit or their profit or understanding. It wasn't for their admonition, the scriptures. How can it be for your admonition if you never learn what it truly means for the heart and never do the works, the good works, the Father's works? The only way someone can do good is do his works, not our own. How is it for their admonition if they never did the Father's works, if they never understood the scriptures? Looking at what someone does can prove that they don't understand by seeing what they believe it means, like the Sabbath. And through learning, there's suffering, and through suffering, there's learning. And that's the only way we can learn. It's through failing, through being wrong, through seeing something wrong carnally first, then spiritual, to be given the understanding. But first, as we read the natural, then the spiritual. It's not the spiritual first, but the natural, and then afterward the spiritual. That's where we come from. We come from being carnal and wrong, and now we have to learn what right is. Everyone's already wrong and a sinner. Everything about the heart is wrong and evil. The heart is deceitful above all things. Who can know it? And desperately wicked. Who can know it? Surely that's true for everyone, including every believer. Another hard truth to see and accept. And whoever says they don't have any sin deceives himself, like we also read. And this understanding those words, just understanding that takes understanding being given from above to not contradict and confuse it and, speak lies about what what scriptures mean or believe that we're perfect, and then sell some doctrine that every believer is perfect now because they said a few words, because they say they believe, and now they cannot sin because they don't understand those words, and then teach that now a believer cannot sin. Some grave error. That's a grave foolishness. It's the only way that a believer learns is through sinning. And because that's true, does that mean we sin on purpose? That's why we read those verses, because it works this way, that this is the only way to learn is through sin. Nevertheless, not to sin on purpose. Does that mean to sin to increase grace? We read by no means. No, never. To not sin on purpose to increase grace, that's not the same thing as just failing and sinning and then needing to learn what's right. That's not the same thing. That's utterly corrupt to sin on purpose to try to increase grace. People don't want to hear it. The church world doesn't want to hear it. They don't know what's going on or how it's working, who the Father is and what he's doing. They don't believe they're sinners in their heart. Especially, people that say they believe in the church world. They don't believe they're sinners because they're washed, they're cleansed by murdering others, by the blood. The only way you get blood is by spilling it. So if you kill, if you murder someone with your heart, this is what man already believes by default. This is how he works. He believes this through working like this, not saying the words. The works prove what someone believes or doesn't believe, not what they say, the works. Obviously, mankind believes murder is good because that's all he does from his heart is murder others. It's not murder to him. He smiled and did this and put on a deception. It's not murder. Of course it's not murder to the carnal man. It never is. Not even literal murder is murder to the one that does it. Something made him do it, Blame it on something else. I didn't do it. The whole thing was a delusion. That's what we need to come out of, is delusion. We're already in it fully. Nobody believes it. Who believes they're in a delusion and needs to come out of it? That's already true by default for everyone in the world, of this world. Jerusalem was in a delusion the whole entire time. It's hard to comprehend these things because to see how it all works together and how the Father is doing this without not doing any evil can be pretty hard to see and understand. Because we do read, he says, I will deceive that prophet, that false prophet. His Father saying that, Jehovah, I will deceive, I, Jehovah, will deceive that false prophet. So does he do the wicked work of deception like people do? Gotcha, deceived you, tricked you, get you to believe something, and then say gotcha, because people, when they deceive others on purpose, they love it. They love what they do. They believe it's good. That's why they did it. What proves they believe it's good? That they did it. But now there is a way under his grace, under his way, where whatever we fail in, that there is a way to do good, to come out of that, to do the right thing, so that we're not condemned. And then that grace can't be taken advantage of and increase in sin and do evil on purpose to increase grace. Then this thing can't be taken advantage of. Where just the carnal man pops out and does some kind of evil, and you didn't do it with intent. You didn't have the planning, say, I'm going to screw this person over. I'm going to do this on purpose, and it's with a wicked heart. But you end up doing something wrong anyways, and then we need to repent. And then there's a way to learn and repent from these things. That is the only way. But outside of his way, people doing these things on purpose with intent is something different still. It's not that the other thing wasn't a sin. It's just that through belief, through his way, there is a way to repent, to come out of that evil, whatever it may be. But we're supposed to repent, turn away from that evil. But Jerusalem, from Adam to the time of Messiah, all of it, they weren't of the truth. And the sacrifices they did, we read plainly, which is a very strong hint towards that being true, that it was a delusion the whole time. For not believing, for the sins, for doing evil in the heart continually, like we read in Genesis. The thoughts and intentions of the heart are evil, only evil continually. And the world was flooded. I wonder what it is now. Is it different than what we read in Genesis? That old world that was flooded, that we do read about an end to all this madness, to this evil, that there will be, and nobody will believe it. No one would believe it in this world in their heart, not for real. No one would believe that their own nation would come under judgment, just like nobody in Jerusalem did, just like nobody in any nation did before it came. The same circle going around and around. Everything that has been done will be done. Whatever will be done has been done. Like we read in Ecclesiastes. If someone believes those verses and sees what it means, then you can know prophecy about what this world is and what it will always be to the end, because you believe and see those verses, and the Father won't be wrong about it. It'll be the same again. Just like it was when Sodom and Gomorrah got destroyed. It'll be just like that, the same. Nobody will believe in reality, in their heart. This world won't. The pride is the greatest right before its fall. So therefore the pride will increase only right before, making it only more deceitful. The pride of Jerusalem would have only increased and been the highest right at the end before its fall. So it can't be any different now, no matter what country, including the strongest countries or the countries that think they're the strongest. Pride comes before the fall, so that pride's very, very high, at its highest right before the fall. And pride doesn't believe that it can fall. Not in any kind of way. And I do believe that that's not that far away, but concerning literal prophecy of this such and such specific thing will happen on this day, that I don't know. And that, you know, with the last video, that's where I see error in what I did, because of putting weight on it, putting importance on it, as if that could be true, as if that is the right thing to believe, and I don't see that it is. We don't know what happens tomorrow, like we read. We don't even know what tomorrow brings or comes. That we're like vapor. Here it's one moment it's here, the next it's gone, like grass. I don't know if I already mentioned that, but that very simple verse. I think in John or one of the books of John. But to go back on the sacrifices, we read plainly that those specific sacrifices, animal sacrifices, did not cleanse the sins. It did not cleanse their sins concerning a real sin in the heart, spiritually. It never did the real thing. We read it plainly. If someone can see that and really see it, then you could see something about the whole thing being wrong. All of it. From the beginning. From Adam. That there's a delusion here for all the people and everything, everyone in the world. The people don't want to see it. They don't want to go there because that would expose themselves, because they need to believe that certain doctrines about people in order to protect themselves and what they believe about themselves. It always goes back to self. Someone's always thinking about themselves first and foremost in this world because they're not following the command to think about others above yourself, even to favor others above yourself, to care about others above yourself. Would the world keeping that? I don't think so. So what is it doing? It's doing what it's always done. It's breaking that from the beginning. It's always thinking and working by itself, from itself, with self being first and only. This is what the corrupt heart is doing when it's believing certain lying doctrines. It wants to believe these lying doctrines because it protects self. It keeps the beast alive. It keeps the false belief that self is a good person and, that self is not a sinner. Even though with the mouth they do honor him. With the lips they do honor him. And will say, I am a sinner. They don't believe it. Did Jerusalem believe it? If someone acknowledged it truly in their heart, something would have been given. It's not that we don't sin anymore from that point forward, but, forgiveness would come. If real repentance comes, forgiveness can come. And we read that too, plainly. So did the people ever repent back then? Did they really repent in their heart and believe these things? If they did, then why did they continue to sacrifice animals which did not cleanse their sin, which never cleansed the sins? That means they were left in their sins. Not only that it did not cleanse their sins, it reminded them of their sins. It did the opposite of forgiveness, which is, to forgive, to forget in that kind of way by being forgiven. It reminded them. It did the opposite of forgiving. Blood. That's what blood will do. That's what shedding blood will do. It'll remind someone of all their sins. Wrath pours out. No forgiveness. Pretty amazing verses there that go pretty deep, to see that it lines up with all his other truths. And it's all connected. It's all one. It's all spirit. So then when there's a lie detected, you see how it starts breaking all the truths that you have. It starts breaking them all. It starts attacking them all. It contradicts them all. That's how one his truth is. That truth, if it's true, if anything is true, cannot break any other truth. It can't truly contradict any other truth spiritually. And indeed, we have many witnesses, quite a few witnesses all line up together for truth, that before Messiah there was no one that truly believed, not even one, not one. Messiah said, one of those verses from Messiah himself, all that came before me. And I see this before going before the word. Messiah is that word going before the word, going ahead of it, our own way, doing our works, is pride. It's a delusion. All that came before me in heart were robbers and thieves. Did he just call everyone a robber and thief? Well, he did, but he didn't do it out of an evil heart. He spoke the truth. And if that's the only truth that there is, then speaking it is not evil, as long as the heart doesn't do any kind of evil. These are the things that people are looking at. They're only looking at the image that your words create. They're only looking at something to point that they can see so they can say you're a sinner and condemned. So they can condemn you. They're not looking for the heart. They're discerning the heart, like Messiah commands to do, to not judge by the outward appearance, but to do righteous judgment, which is completely different than saying no judgment, to do no judgment at all, not to do that evil judgment, which is judging by outward appearance and having a condemnation in the heart, to condemn someone and judge them in that kind of way. Condemnation, judgment, coming from evil. And he didn't say not to do any judgment, just don't do the judgment that the world does every day. Not so easy. This comes from above. Nobody does that. The judgment people do all day long, everywhere you go and see, is condemnation, but they will tell you it's not. They will tell you, I don't judge someone. They just did. They just did, and they just expose someone in their own way, and then they say, I don't judge that person. I don't judge you. The carnal man has to pour everything out of his heart for what he's doing. He needs to tell you what he's doing because he's lying, because he's guilty of doing the opposite of what he's saying. He says the opposite to deceive you, so you don't see what his heart really did. And then he doesn't believe any of this happened, because it's all done in the dark and you can't see. And it's banking on that fact. It's hanging on and worshiping and hanging on to that fact that nobody can see. It's speaking as if nobody can see, for sure. No one can see. No one can see me. No one can see what I do, what I just did. And then when it stabs you and does some kind of evil to you, it says, just kidding. Just joking. I was only joking. There's a verse about that very specifically that says I was only just joking. I was only kidding, joking. Murder and death and arrows come forth. The word death itself being used. And then the fool says, I was only just joking. How often is that done? Everything is just a joke to the devil. If someone cares about truth, they won't even do a kind of joke where you're tricked for 2 seconds. That's a deception. That didn't come from a good heart or a good work. That came from an evil work, even if it didn't look that bad. You don't go by the outward appearance, Messiah said. You don't go by someone smiling while they do evil, and therefore they didn't do any evil, and it's just a tiny little thing, and you're making it into nothing. He also taught that if we don't care about the smallest little things, then we will never be able to explain that a little bit, that we will never be able to do anything greater. Unless the smallest thing is done first, nothing above that will be done in the heart. That's how it works. Everyone already believes they're doing the greatest thing. And then the little things that they think are little are trash, are nothing. They're counted as nothing. When those are the very stepping stones to the big things, that's how important those little things are. It's backwards. It's completely backwards. Oh, you got my order? Ha, gotcha. Just kidding. It's not for me. Even just somebody passing you by needs to deceive you. Try to deceive you. That's all that's on someone's mind, is to deceive, deceive, deceive. And then it blends in and it lies and it pretends it did some kind of accident if it got spotted. Or if it appears that it got spotted, it will hide by saying it was an accident. How often is that happening? Because you can't tell the difference between an accident and what's real, right? That's what it's doing. That's what it's assuming. It's always believing that. And then some image worship is done and people exchange words and it gets really awkward. You know that feeling when it gets awkward? Sin is going on right there. Truth is not awkward like that. It's not gross like that. And that's different from being like nervous or something with no evil being done. This is a very specific thing that I'm thinking of. This awkwardness, this worship. Yeah, man, you too. Yeah. And then you start believing your own lie and start talking in a way that what you say is important when it means nothing to you. And when you walk away from the person, you go, that's a bunch of shit. I didn't believe any of what I just said. You know, there's a bunch of worshiping of the image going on, self and others. Self and others. Very much self and then others. Worshiping someone's image, the world sort of touches on it a little bit with words. It's often a piece of that understanding is often called sucking up to someone. But that doesn't mean the truth to this world, sucking up to someone. See, the world already has its own words that mean certain things that aren't the actual truth. That's why people can speak of it as if they're not offended, as if it doesn't bother them so much. Because the person that's saying that isn't speaking truth. If truth was actually spoken, everybody would be offended and hate it. Because their heart would be stabbed, pricked with the sword, which is the word. They would be spotted. It would discern them. They would be guilty. It would bring up that guilt when the truth is spoken. But when working in the dark and just saying some whatever, sucking up to someone with no intention, no sight from above, not coming from the Father, not coming from His Spirit, it doesn't discern anything. It doesn't uncover anything, or rather to simply see through people's covering, like, light, seeing the darkness. Then it doesn't do that work, that spiritual work inside, when it didn't come from Him. And the very right words could even be said, and it doesn't do anything. It has no effect. It's void. The very right words could be said, and it's void and has no effect, and therefore that person's a liar, even though they speak the truth with the mouth. And no one would believe that. Why? How could they? Spoke the truth, literally. How could he be lying? Because of what the heart is doing. Lies are not what this world says they are. Lying is an intention in the heart. It's always going back to the intention and thoughts of the heart. Oh, 13% battery left. Slowly going down, even though it's getting a little bit of a charge. I have it on dim black screen to save some battery. Should be all right. You can picture the natural thing, darkness. If someone is darkness and they appear before a bunch of people, who is it going to expose when there's no light? It's a darkness meeting and speaking with darkness. There's nothing actually real going on. There's nothing being exposed. There's no light to see it. That's what happens when darkness, a person, no matter what they say, if they're darkness, it doesn't do anything. There's no power. There's nothing going on. There's no light. And something inside isn't happening then when it's darkness, because darkness can't do that. It can't do good works. It can't do light. Good works are light. Light is good works. Doing good in this world will expose the darkness just for doing whatever is right. And people won't like that so much. They didn't like what Messiah did. In fact, they killed him, murdered him, because he did good works and didn't have a wicked heart, doing evil like the rest of the world every day. He spoke the truth. He went around doing good. He went around doing the Father's business and minding his own at the same time that nobody keeps and nobody does. Mind your own business. Nobody keeps that. Get real. So every time someone says it out of a condemning, judging heart, they're hypocrites if they don't ever keep it themselves. Expecting someone else to and never doing itself. That's what we read of the leaders of the day, the Pharisees, not lifting a single finger for any of what they speak about the law. Because Messiah is speaking of the heart again. He's saying they're not keeping any of that in their heart and what that looks like in the heart. That's how he can say they don't lift a single finger for everything they say on all the law that they even speak about, even under Moses' seat. Everything he's speaking about constantly is spirit. My word is spirit. And nobody sees it. Nobody knows what he's talking about. Doesn't the world say whatever it doesn't understand, it's afraid of? Fear killed Messiah. It was gravely afraid of what it did not comprehend or understand. We read plainly the darkness did not comprehend the light. It did not comprehend it. It wants to go back into darkness, like a beast spotted in the night, running back to this darkness into the sticks. It doesn't want to be seen. How much worse is it for Adam and Eve and all mankind than a beast that does the exact same thing as a beast? Fear is also wrath and anger. The more fearful someone is, the more angry, the more wrath, and therefore possible murder could happen if a little bit of the leash is let loose from the beast to do what it wills, to do the Father's will, the devil. The Father as in the devil here. As Messiah said of them, you always do the will of your Father. Isn't that righteous to always do the will of your Father? That's how backwards, that's how sick it is. That's how masqueraded the image of truth is. Every little detail is copied, made to look good while doing evil and deceiving everyone with every law, every detail, every work. That's why man believes he's righteous, because he always does the will of his Father. He's always obedient. And all the killing and the slashing and warfare, literal warfare, he believes he's righteous even more so, because he went to great lengths to keep the Father's will. That is the devil. Could it be that nobody understood the Father's word, the true one, Jehovah? Could it be no one understood it, and the world still doesn't, while it believes it does? Could it be that Jerusalem never understood his word, never kept it? Therefore, you cannot keep what you do not understand. Nobody can keep what they don't understand. First, some understanding needs to come. So then nobody kept it. Nobody did. You say, how could the people be so off doing these things? That's what our reality is right now. It just needs to be seen. Whatever we can see, whatever he gives us to see. That's how bad it is right now. That's how bad it is right now. The same world today as it was yesterday, and 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. If anything, only worse. The devices that people have came up with only just go to work for more evil. The fakery, the image getting stronger, even literally with technology and AI. It's really, really gross. If enough time was given, where is this all going to lead to? Nothing good. Just one giant evil is what it would lead to. It already is. Speaking truth is to prophesy. Doing good, doing the Father's works. Like everything else isn't what someone would think. The true prophecy isn't about predicting a carnal thing and saying it will happen on that day. And I don't see how that fits with, love not the world or any of the things in it to do that. The world's affairs, the world has its own affairs going on, and we just have to let it be what it is. Not that we can't be shown different things or how it works, how evil works, what people are doing, but not to do that. And speaking for myself, for all that time they were sacrificing animals and it never cleansed their sin. All that time, did the Father command them to really do that in their heart, to command a delusion, to deceive them like a wicked man deceives somebody with evil intention? What's going on here? Did he command them to do the Sabbath like that? To understand the Sabbath carnally? Because that's not the Father's understanding of the Sabbath. It's man's understanding. of the Sabbath. It's people's understanding, which will be a little different and divided all over the place. That's part of the devil's kingdoms. It's divided. And then it fights over those false things. And none of it's right. Did the Father command them to understand their own understanding and then keep it that way? Aren't they the examples for us and not for their admonition? So that we can see when he speaks, someone hears a delusion. Some people hear this, they hear a voice, they hear thunder, like we read. It's all over the place when truth is spoken. It's like a delusion is spoken to somebody. It's so bad. Like, speak truth in this world, even the most simplest thing, or just do whatever is right. Be yourself doing whatever is right. It's as if you spoke some kind of delusion sometimes. At least that's like how they hear it. Whatever they hear in their mind, like it didn't comprehend. Something misfired really badly. To see any kind of good work or truth, or just simply not doing evil. Whatever you do, like, let's say it wasn't anything evil about it, and therefore it was good. And someone sees that and like it misfires badly. What on earth did it really see? That's how much enmity there is in people's heart against truth and good, because they saw proof that they never believed in, that nobody does, and they don't believe anybody does. So when they see it, it hates it so much, it's resistant to it so badly, it just sees some kind of delusion instead, something else besides the truth. Maybe that's why we read, some heard this, some heard that, some say this, some say that concerning the voice. What's going on there? Did the Father say, this is my beloved Son, or not? Or was it thunder? Or was it this? Or was it a cat meowing? How is it so divided over something that simple? Aren't the people all there when they hear? What, they didn't hear the same thing? It's an interesting question. There's something to it. There's a reason why we read it. Once again, it's not about the outward thing here, but teaching something that really is going on like that in the heart. The same exact thing is done or said, and somebody, a bunch of people say it's something that it wasn't, something else. It's strange, freaky. And I know the enmity is strong. I know it's strong enough. The enmity in the heart, it doesn't want to see good. The lie that it loves truth and wants to see good is going to be exposed when it actually does see it. Because it didn't know what real good was. It didn't actually do it or believe in it ever. When the real thing comes, and Messiah being that perfect example, it goes into strong wrath and delusion and blindness. It goes blind when it sees Messiah's works. The evil that goes on in the mind, so evil that it goes even more blind than before Messiah spoke any truth to them. Because the more evil going on in the heart, the blinder someone gets. Spiritually blind. If anybody's ever seen somebody in wrath, maybe you could, see some of it, should be able to, if anybody sees any truth at all, to see that that's true. The more evil going on in the heart, the blinder that person is. Start doing insane things when somebody's filled up with wrath, doing evil, It starts doing such insane things that even the world will call it out. That's not in that same wrath in that moment. It sees more than that person in wrath in comparison. Even the world will say something about it when it's like that. And it very much needs to, because it needs to protect itself. Those are the bad people. Those are the wicked in prison and stuff. I'm good. Most people are good. I'm not that person. It's got motive and, reasons to call out, to point the finger like that, to protect itself. It's really gross what the heart is. Words can't describe ever. Even the right words don't do it justice for how bad it is. Desperately wicked. And that's true. But it doesn't, to really see it, those words don't cut through, even though it's true, even though it's right. It's a nasty thing. A beastly thing. And the world takes pride in being beastly. It is Mr. Beast, after all, that's like, what, the most subscribers in the world on YouTube? Somewhere up there. Number 1, number 2, I don't know. Mr. Beast, out of all names. Mr. Beast. Insane things done. Insane things being done all the time. You have to be insane to grow like that. And then everybody starts copying each other and they all start looking the same. Because it's a steal, kill, destroy world. Forget it's a copycat this, copycat that. The whole world is a steal, kill, destroy world. To steal is copy, copy is to steal. It steals for its own benefit. That is its intention, and says, I'll do it better with envy. I could do that. I could do that too, says the 5-year-old kid that's in wrath. It's envious. I'll do it better. Isn't that evil? Isn't that pathetic? That heart, that condition right there, doing that work of envy like that. It never truly grows up, does it? That's why we read about growing in Messiah. Because it wasn't ever growing all this time in unbelief. There's nothing to grow. The dead don't grow. Only the living do. The dead don't do anything. It doesn't do any good. It doesn't do the Father's works. And yet, the dead start doing good and start doing the Father's works. Because there's 2 different kinds of dead. Blessed are the dead that die in Messiah from now on. This is the good dead, dying to the old man. And those that are not dying to the old man are dead. And that's the evil kind of dead. The opposite of the other. Even though they share the same word, there's a difference, a discernment between the two to be made. So I believe there's something to the letter being condemned with the flesh put to death, that through Messiah this happened and now needs to happen within us. But I don't think going back to the original point of the video, that I don't believe there is such prophecy for us to do. Not that kind of prophecy. And see, truth has connections. If you see a connection that's given, you connect it and then you can't refute it with other witnesses, and it becomes bigger and stronger. Now you're going up against a raging bull or whatever, something big, strong, instead of a tiny little ant. Going up against a giant world, the world itself, that needs to be broken down now instead of just stepping on an ant. When everything's connected, then it has power. Now the thought's escaping me, the connection. Something about not being beneficial or profitable. I had a thought to connect it to something else. I don't like it when that happens. Well, the connection was to bring out something on showing evidence, proof on why that would be true, that this kind of prophecy doesn't, to line it up with other verses and other things. Now, I don't know right now. Guess I'm going blank. Systems are shutting down. But then maybe to finish just that, in short, that I don't see any profit in it, and that whatever was done in the last video wasn't all good or all right. And that could cause fear, which is not a good thing, not my intention, but nevertheless, it doesn't make it right. not seeing something in that moment, in that time, blind. That's how it works. And doing any kind of evil is to be blind in it, just to see how, to see, to see how and why, to believe it. And that's not what anybody would naturally want to do, because that would be truth. That would be doing good to see that, to want to see that. It needed to be seen, to turn away from whatever's wrong, to repent, to acknowledge whatever is wrong. So that something true can be seen instead of the lie, of the false thing, whatever it may be. And then all this needs to be done in a world that does not care at all. But a believer has to care. Well, if we go by the image concerning the world, it's looking pretty good. It's sounding pretty good to me, based on what the image, the sound, how it looks. It looks like we're looking up. Good things are on the horizon. Even the entire national debt paid off. Yeah, I think within this year, if not this year, next year. Those are the words I heard from Mr. President. Years and years of chaos and abuse and corruption, and don't think anyone could see just how much, because the sum of it must be just massive. All just fixed within the year. That does sound pretty good. It sounds pretty impressive. I wonder how that would be done so quickly. Trump did seem to admit that part of the reason why he ran, or at least this is what he said, was because he was in serious trouble. It could have gotten ugly. His life could have gone bad. But I guess winning the presidency gives him power, and he can escape some of these, I don't know, charges, allegations, whatever. Who knows what's true or not, man, with what they say. Some people are so hooked, so hardcore into certain people or hate certain people, they do insane things. Burn cars, burn this, destroy that, to show their statement of some kind of weird hatred. Not faith. They would call it faith, I guess. But some hardcore worshiping of a man. Because of some carnal thing like, well, I side with the Republicans now, Elon Musk. So now I'm going to burn my car because I thought you were a Democrat. This mutant world, morphing into one, trying to I don't know what it will come of it. I don't know that or what day or anything like that. And I believe that's how it needs to be. It also requires faith to not know. If we knew everything, that would happen in the future, then we wouldn't need any faith. Then it would be, we see everything, but as it is, we don't see, or whatever we don't see, to believe in, we don't see it. And that's faith, to believe in what we don't see. And I personally don't believe or buy what I'm hearing. That much I feel is true. I don't believe it. But the world's got its own thing going on, and the kingdom of heaven is not of this world. And that's where the focus should be. The kingdom of heaven, seeking the kingdom of heaven. And not seeking the world, the things in it, the things of it, being attached to it, connected to it, in the way that the world is. The heart is connected to it. It speaks and talks about the things that it sees only, which is very much attached to this world. That's what else can someone do? This is the kingdom. These are the kingdoms. And it's speaking about all the things within these kingdoms divided. The devil has many kingdoms, namely all of them on earth are his. The Father's not the ruler of this world. The devil is. The God of this world is the ruler of this world, this wicked age. That means there's an evil power at work. There's an evil hierarchy. There's an evil system at work. And it's running through that wickedness and through that evil and through that dark power. Where does this power even come from? Why is there a hierarchy? Why does any man worship some man and say he's king and he's God and he's above all others and they bow? Where does this come from? Nobody even asks. If they did, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. Nobody would. I guess it's always been that way. That one man is more important than another and is greater and above others. The exact opposite of the kingdom of heaven, where nobody is above anyone else at all times. No one is better than anyone else. All are level, like the earth. And there's no male, there's no female in the kingdom. No pride. No, I'm greater, I'm better, none of that. A different world altogether, a completely different world that is invisible. That has nothing to do with this world or all of its works, all of its thoughts, all of its intentions, nothing to do with. And yet we have to be right in the world right now and not of it, to somehow not be of it, even though we're in it. The Messiah prayed that we are not taken out of the world, but that we are in it and not of it. If somebody believed just those words alone, they wouldn't believe in being raptured. They wouldn't believe in that false doctrine. I pray not that they're taken out of the world. Isn't raptured to be taken out of this world and all of its problems? Messiah prayed not that they be taken out of this world. I wonder why. But that they're in it, just not of it in spirit, not of it in heart, not by the image. Because if the image is gone, if the image is judged, then yeah, everyone judges by the image. Someone will say all day long that such and such believer is wicked. You already know that. It's only looking at the image and trying to use it for its advantage to condemn someone so that it can raise itself up higher over whoever it condemns. Isn't that the purpose also of condemning someone? To make yourself rise above that other person that is condemned. You're lower than the dirt and I'm somewhere way above. That's what condemnation does too. It literally proves it believes it's greater than that person and above. And everybody is dust in reality. Right at the bottom, dirt. And yet pride is not there. So it's a delusion. That's what someone really is. They're nothing. But they don't believe they're nothing, therefore they rise. Pride rises up in the heavens, up to the heavens, walking on rubies, playing some song, walking around saying, I'm God man, I'm the king, I'm above everyone. And then that great fall is going to come. All that pride crumbling down. I wonder what a believer is. I wonder what happens to a believer. Doesn't that exact same thing need to happen? Because they're wicked. So all that pride needs to come crashing down. All the way until the heart matches our reality, which is that everyone's just dirt, dust, all the way on the ground at the bottom. And it's not until the heart and its works and what it really believes that the Father knows that no one can lie and trick him, until that matches reality, till those beliefs and works match the reality in the heart as reality. Therefore, pride is a delusion because it's not actual reality, but it looks strongly that way. And we're allowed to be in a delusion for a time. And we're allowed to do evil, and we're allowed to be deceived and to believe false things and believe its own lie. So everyone high up in pride believes in those things, and they appear to be real with the way the world works, and someone's got power and they got money and they got riches and fame and they're way above everyone else. All those things that happen to it makes it believe its own lie even more. The delusion becomes even more real to someone that has all that pride. It's even worse. It's even higher up in the heavens than somebody beneath them in their own mind. It's a working delusion, this world. It's working in a way. It looks real, but it's all a working delusion. Compared to the truth, this is not reality. This won't stand. It's not standing. It won't stand, and it's all crashing down. It's all coming down, and it's going to be utterly destroyed and wiped away. And whatever is utterly destroyed and wiped away, that was no reality after all. It was a delusion after all. And only the things of truth will stand. stand the test of time even. Reminding me of a game, Civilization, which I was reminded of before earlier. That phrase, to stand the test of time. What will happen? Will it fall? Will it stand the test of time? Well, the answer for these kingdoms is that not a single nation ever stood the test of time. If in the end it collapses utterly, then the answer is no, it did not stand the test of time. Only the kingdom of heaven stands the test of time. And that's the only kingdom that cannot be destroyed. With no understanding and just reading some scripture, it sounds like, a carnal man would come to be of David and to start that kingdom of David, just the way it was of old. But no, something different happened. That man did come through being born of a woman, born like everyone else for the same reason, and then grew up, raised up by the Creator, raised up like we read, like a child is raised up, which means the child's learning. And then this kingdom began. And it was very disappointing because nobody saw it. And they're still looking for it. It's almost funny how bad it is. I guess everyone's still looking for something, just not the right thing. Like sheep all gone astray, lost, roaming, looking for something. That's what we read. We are like sheep gone astray. Is a sheep stronger or is a wolf stronger? Is a sheep coward or is a wolf a coward? What would the answer be from the world? Wouldn't it be pretty obvious that the wolf is strong and that the sheep is the coward and the wolf is strong and not a coward? Wrong. Because of a twisted, wrong definition of coward and every other word of truth. It's backwards. It only spoke of itself because it is the wolf that it says is not a coward. It is the wolf that it says is strong and the sheep is not strong. It's protecting itself, as always. It's speaking about itself. And when it looks into the Father's word, the reason why it's like a mirror is because someone reads and they understand with their own understanding, and whatever they think of and whatever's going on in their heart and mind when they read, that's their own understanding. And then they see that as the Bible, as God's understanding, but they're looking at self like in a mirror. It's their understanding. It's people's understanding. It's self. It's looking at self. And then it can't see that it points the finger, and the finger points back at its own self because it's a mirror. And it applies to every work that somebody does in their heart. Every time it points a finger, it points back at itself. We read Messiah always heard the Father's voice. He always obeys the Father's voice. What voice? The one time that he said, "This is my beloved Son, who am I well pleased." And people heard thunder and people saw lightning, whatever, heard this, heard that. Some heard a voice. Or is he speaking in spirit? The true meaning of hearing his voice was never to hear it. Not to hear it literally, anyways. Abraham's an example, a type, a shadow of walking with the Creator, listening to him. There's no law, in a way, before Moses, law that came and was written down and revealed like that. He was just listening to the Father's voice. That's how it's supposed to be. And then this law, all that word, gets written in the heart bit by bit, day by day. Not all at once, lest we should just die, but just a little bit at a time, like we read, little by little. Here a little, there a little. And then that's repeated, isn't it? Like 2 or 3 times. And that means something too. It's going to need to happen over and over again, but here a little, there a little. And it's not going to be ever by a lot. Here's a lot all at once. And Noah, an example of building an ark, doing the Father's works, which isn't cutting wood and making a big ship, and yet it is. He's a type of doing the Father's works, just listening to what he says and not reading a letter that's very, very big and long and saying, am I doing this? Am I doing that? Am I doing this? Am I doing that? So then it makes me think and believe that even the Bible itself is for a deception for all the world. That even though the whole world hears about it and knows about it, it's still not going to see any truth or do any good. That's pretty incredible. But then again, it's not. Because what can a book do to somebody's heart? What can paper and ink do to somebody's heart unless that becomes spirit and alive? And then it goes within the person and is written within their heart. But now we shouldn't be expecting, not that anybody is that's listening, all 2 people or 3, that we hear his voice literally like Noah or, Abraham. But it's something like that, to hear it in spirit. And from my experience, this is not easy either. What on earth is his voice sometimes? What's mine? And what's the world's? And what's the devil? And what's the devil want? What's he thinking? I am the devil. What's Ryan thinking? And what's the Creator's thoughts? Is this right or is that right? It would almost be nice to hear the literal words, wouldn't it? Just tell me what to do out loud, because I'm carnal. But that's how it's understood. Here's how it's understood. All the things that the people did of old and how it could all be wrong and all delusion, without condemning any of them. That's what needs to be done, without condemning any of them or thinking we're better than them, because that's a sin to think we're better than them. Just like Messiah said about the Pharisees, they think they're not the same people as their fathers. If we were there back then, instead of our fathers, we wouldn't have done such and such. We would have done this or that. Messiah's basically saying, no, you wouldn't. You just proved you are the condemnation and guilt of your fathers right now, and they can't see how. See that heart, that belief that they just did? They proved that their heart was something. They proved pride. They proved arrogance and pride and all those things. And then Messiah sees those works and what that pride is, and then he knows when he sees that pride and all those works, this proves something because of how everything works spiritually. And then he just immediately says, basically, you just proved you are the same. You are those people. You're the same as those fathers you say you're not of, because you're embarrassed by what they did, whatever they did. You say, we're not like them. We're not them. I'm sure people have heard that, right? Individual people, maybe a group of people at some point. I'm not like them. I'm not like that. I'm not like this. I'm not like my parents, whatever. That's what to watch out for, is that pride saying that it's not. Because it will be for sure if it's saying that. It's going to be proven that. It'll never be anything else. Instead, to acknowledge that it is the same, that it's a sinner, that it's no good, that it's no better than anyone. To acknowledge it instead of fighting it to the death, or resisting it to the death. When the Father commands something, man hears it as the examples and types, but he also knows what they're going to do, and that he's going to use this for a teaching and a parable at the same time. So it's a lot to think about or consider. He already knows what they're going to do, that it's going to be wrong, but he's going to use that evil for some kind of teaching, for some kind of good. And not that everything looks evil, but if it's not the truth, then it's evil. It doesn't matter what it looks like. If it's a lie in any kind of way, it's evil. It doesn't have to look like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But he speaks, and then man tries to comprehend, and then the Father allows the man to do what he thinks it means. And through all that pride and everything, all the sin, and man goes into delusion, and the Father still goes on as if they are doing right in a way, to use it as a parable, a teaching, where he's having a lot of patience and long suffering for seeing that nobody's doing what's right or understanding. So all of that could happen. All of those things could happen and be built, and everybody can do whatever they do and receive whatever they receive in this world, because he has a lot of patience on evil, a lot of patience on people. If he had no patience, we wouldn't even be here. It would just be wiped away. So then it makes sense to have patience then as a command, unless we would like to just be wiped away right now by condemning someone else and not having any patience on them. So that's this foolishness that we are. that nobody thinks of when these things are done. Would you like to be wiped away right now and that's it? And yet it's okay to do that to someone else and have no patience on them and wipe them away. But self is God. It always does to others what no one can do to it. Well, where is that button? Well, I think I'll end it here. With not knowing what tomorrow will bring or be. All right, peace. Take care. Seek truth from